Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-host, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain. That is Kenny Simpson. Coach, I feel like it's been a while, man.
It has, you can tell, because I definitely need a haircut, and you definitely do not need a haircut with that military cut you got going on there and the mustache.
Yeah, we got the what they call it, like the 2-week haircut rule or whatever, basically. So I hit my time. It was time to get it cut off.
Yeah.
Up here doing a military school. It's going well. It's just learning to cook more than like your mom and dad teach you in the kitchen. You know what I mean? So it's a neat little program I'm getting to go through. But
yeah, well, I think we're finally in cold weather. I hope, we had I'm sure Oklahoma did too. We were out of school a whole week with the snow, and so we missed a whole week of school, and I was able, luckily, to get out. The roads were good enough to get to Alabama for the clinic, this past weekend, and
yeah,
that was really, really neat to connect with coaches. And then, of course, we've got not much longer until I'll see you, in Boston, and then you'll get to see my wife. She's coming with me to Boston, and then I'm bringing my littlest boy. He'll get his first chance to do a clinic with me. He's 12, so he's going to come to Wisconsin with me.
We talked about trying to get Sam up there as well, but Samantha's my wife, and it just comes. We did the DC for the inauguration, and then leaving the kids with a babysitter for 3 days. That's the first time we've been away from them since they were born. So it was just kind of weird, and we didn't really like it, I don't think. So
here's what I call it: when you go with your family somewhere, it's a trip. When you go with your wife somewhere, it's a vacation. So I'm a big fan of any chance we get to go spend some time. Of course, you want to have family trips too.
Yeah. So we'll try to turn one in next year to a whole family trip, I think. But sounds like it'll just be me. Well, I'm glad that we got to get back on. The snow was crazy. Sam did get stuck at home with the kids. I left on a Sunday, and she's got snowed in the next day. So she's been home with the kids the whole time. So that was pretty chaotic. But yeah, she's kicking it. The farm seems to be doing well. She sent me a picture of like 4 different baby goats that were born. So
there you go.
The farm exploded while I was gone as well. So
that's always good. No, that's it. And I've been, of course, when I'm at home with the snow, I'm going to work on stuff. So I've got several books kind of in the works, and big one, the reason I think it was spurred today was at Special Teams Academy. I went ahead and recorded probably about half of that over that break. So that'll be coming out soon. I'm excited about special teams. I know we're talking about that tonight. I don't want to ruin the surprise here for guys that are, I'm sure you probably looked at the title before you clicked this, but
should be in the title. Yeah.
So you probably know.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think special teams is one of those neglected phases. And really, I look at our team this year. We won 2 or 3 games directly because of special teams. So I'm excited to talk that. And I got to kind of start putting that academy together and reaching out to guys. So if you're still listening to this, we're still looking for 1 or 2 more guys that do really cool things in special teams that we want to add into that academy. So if you're a guy on here listening, hey, we do a really neat thing with our kickoff return or our punt team or our kickers or whatever that might be, I'm still looking for guys to be in that.
Yeah, it's a great chance to get your name out there, really, anytime you start working with Kenny. If you haven't worked with Kenny before, it's an excellent opportunity for you as an individual and coach. So if you guys have anything, bring that to him. I imagine he'll get you in there.
Well, headsets coming out too. So we got headsets coming out this month too, and it's going to be a good one, and excited about it.
Yeah, actually, I missed an episode or a volume. I guess
I told you you're a little busy. So
yeah, this school came about, and it kind of caught me off guard. So you guys get your articles in if you're going to be writing. Maybe write an extra one ahead of time so you don't get stuck in my boat where you miss one. Great chance to share.
I'm going to dock you a month of pay, which is $0 for writing for that. Yeah,
dock some nothing. Awesome. Well, you know what, man? Let's get into real quick, the quote of the week, because I always forget it. So let's see what you got for that.
I feel like it's been forever since we recorded, so I really hope I haven't done this one. But we're going to go Eric Spoelstra. If y'all don't know who he is, he's a Miami Heat coach. I am not an NBA fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like him a whole lot as a coach. I think you can learn a lot from him. His quote is this: "Scheme is not going to save us. It's going to be about toughness and resolve." And I think when you're hearing a coach at the highest level who probably knows more scheme than anybody knows come out and say things like that, that's the danger of the offseason right now. The danger of the offseason right now is you get on a whiteboard like what's behind me and probably what's in there with Daniel, and you think some play is going to save you. That's not the truth. I mean, scheme matters. It definitely matters. It does. It is important. But toughness, resolve, teaching your kids how to compete, all of that stuff way outweighs scheme. If that stuff's not right, you can't draw anything up that's going to work. So I thought it was a really, really good quote to kind of this point in the off season where everybody's probably getting ready to roll into spring football or you're putting together your playbook. Don't neglect the things that really matter, which is teaching your kids how to be tough, how to compete, gaining strength and speed. That's going to outweigh any scheme. And this is coming from a guy who makes money selling scheme.
Selling scheme.
So understand that like that stuff's way more important than scheme is.
Awesome. Those are great points, Coach. All right, man. Real quick, why don't you share some ways we can simplify football for our staff and for our kids?
What's up, coaches? I want to talk to you for just a few moments about your program. The longer I'm in this profession, the more I understand that efficiency is truly the name of the game. You're talking offense, defense, doesn't matter, right? Eventually, you're going to come down to checking out your efficiency. So I have to ask you, are you doing everything in your program the most efficient way, right? Are you fundraising the most efficient way? Are you representing your players and your program to the public in the best way? Are you planning to build the facilities the most efficient way? If you answered no to any of those, or really even if you answered yes to all of them, and you haven't contacted Mark Bridges at Ace Sports, you're missing a key step. So look, Mark and his team, they are the go-to group for video board and scoreboard installations for your school. They're not just football either. Mark can help you mock up your newest video board for your that new stadium or maybe even your old stadium, right? That's where Mark and the guys come in. And we're not just buying a flashy thing, right? Yes, it's nice. It's pretty neat to have that big scoreboard, that big video board, but you're also, you're investing back into that program. You're investing into that newest fundraiser. Sure, you can keep selling your discount cards, your beef jerky, hosting pie auctions, whatever it is that you like to do. But let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. We're not making enough money for those big ticket items. For the big ticket items like turf, an indoor facility, that's where you need a big ticket item fundraiser. That's what Ace Sports is offering you today. Guys, I've talked to Mark several times now, all right? And it always comes down to big school, small school. Right? Well, of course, the big schools can afford that new video board, but the small schools really can't. It's just not true anymore, man. Your school isn't too small, and I promise. Okay, 1A, 2A schools, it doesn't matter. Mark and the guys, they're helping them out. Contact Mark today at mark.bridges@acesports.com and let him come give you a quote. Let him show you and your administration the plan. Now, really, it's the cheat code, right? Let him show you the cheat code that is fundraising with Ace Sports video boards. Tell him Daniel sent you. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Del in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense.
Appreciate that, Coach. I feel like the ads this time of year are the most valuable thing because we do have the guys from Ace Sports on there. look, I've been working with this offseason too, right? Prices are down right now for most people. The market's kind of normalizing. So if you've reached out to them in the past, or if the price has ever been scary for you, this is a great time to hook up with Mark and Ryan and the guys and just figure out what they can do for you and your school. Obviously, as we see inflation come down more and more under this new admin, then those prices should get even better. But at some point, you're going to have waited a long time to, you know what I mean? So you'll kind of lose a lot of income source there if you're not careful. But it's a great opportunity to get in and get your team set up for a long time. Talk to me about gun tea clinics. I think this comes out. Should come out somewhere around the 17th of March. So give you an idea of timeline.
Yeah, so we got 2 left. So if the 17th of March means I just returned from Washington, I'm excited about heading that direction, but that one is now over. We have 2 left, and Daniel's going to be at both of those 2. Boston, which is going to be April the 4th and 5th, I think. That's going to be Chris Haddad's going to talk. Daniel's going to talk. There's going to be a lot of options at that clinic. It's a clinic I've been to now for 4 or 5 years. So Malden Catholic, they do a great job hosting. Potentially I'm working with a sponsor, Team Builder, really connected with them a little bit this offseason. They're going to be there, and I'm trying to work with them on maybe even doing a coach's social. So if you come on that might be a chance to even have some kind of sponsored event that goes along with the clinic. So that's kind of exciting. And some of the other speakers we're going to have there. And then the next week, going to Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for our 2nd year. They did a great job hosting last year, so excited to return. I know Daniel's going to be there as well. Bring my son, my youngest son, will be his first gun tea clinic. He's running the table, so y'all go up there and pay him pennies or something to make him work for his living.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I know we've been talking about those clinics for seems like 6 months now, but I am stoked. The closer we get, the more excited I get. So I think I will just have driven home last night when this posts. So finally getting away from the Army and getting back into football mode. Also need to mention, look at that, I knocked my notes off. The Team Themes Volume 5, when does that hit?
Soon. I'm actually very close to getting that done. My goal is to always put these up before the season, so probably in May, if I was guessing. I've got a couple other books in the works too. That we have a 3-4 defensive swarm. I've been getting hit up over and over and over to put more information out on that. So I'm working on the 2.0, basically all our updated blitzes, coverages, kind of the way we've evolved the defense a little bit. That's going to be coming out sometime in the next couple months. And then I'm working on several other books, one with Daniel that we both have to figure out a time to write it, but we've got several books kind of in that vein. Those may or may not come out this summer, or they might even be next off season. But I should have the defensive book and the team themes book coming out, before we get to summer.
Tell me about Playmakers. Did you already mention that one?
Yeah. So the Play Caller's Guide that's been out. We've sold a bunch of those. It's been really, really cool to see it. I think it got up number 1 or 2 on Amazon, which is always fun to kind of see how that works. And, but it's been cool. It's all about calling plays. It's not gun tea specific, although I do obviously draw from my own experience.
Right.
But it talks mainly about like how to design your offense, how to set up your sideline to make checks, using tags, stuff that any play caller can use. It's similar to the One Play Many Ways book I put out a couple of years ago, and the fact that it's, how do you structure an offense to make it as good as possible.
Awesome. That's I actually know people have already bought that book, so I told them I need an overview, a book report due next week. So
It's been fun to see, and been always neat to see stuff out. That's our 41st book we've produced, so it's pretty cool that we're getting to that number. And who knew when that was going to happen? And then we do a Special Teams Academy is on its way too. My hope is to have that out by May. And so I've already recorded my part of it. I'm collecting, like I mentioned in the first part of the show, collecting the best guys I know. If you think you've got something to contribute, we will love to have you in that academy. My goal is to have about 12 hours worth of content that will cover every special team. And then, of course, you would get the book included with that. And so that's kind of the goal. We already have the special teams workbook available. So if you're a special teams coach and you want that, that's over at FP Coach Simpson right now. But we're trying to build the academy to go with it.
Awesome. That's a good deal. Quickly, I want to mention Patreon, patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. That's where I'm trying to help coaches do whatever the things is they need done. If you're looking for graphics help, if you're looking for developing a coach, developing a kid, kind of whatever, anything you need, getting a social media presence on for your school. There's a 1,000 ways that I can help you. So what I want you to do is go over and go to Patreon, find one of the tiers, see if they work for you. If not, shoot me an email or something. Contact me, DM me on Twitter, and we'll find a tier that works for you. We'll make one. I'll make one on the spot. So just figure out what tier you like, and we'll do things to make you more successful. Let's jump into it here, Coach. So we talked tonight, or we're talking tonight about special teams and kind of the philosophy that goes behind them, right? I think special teams is one of those that can quickly be overlooked if you get into it, because there's no such thing as a special teams head coach, right? There's an offensive minded head coach and there's a defensive minded head coach. No one is a special teams minded head coach, right? That's not real. We do have special teams coordinators at most schools. Sometimes that's just for a stipend and it's a guy that probably doesn't know what he's doing. And then sometimes we give it to people because they really have a knack for these kind of things. So I think that, as we walk through here, we're going to see that we probably, none of us give it all the investment it needs. But I'm really anxious to kind of hear how you look at special teams, kind of hear some of your philosophy. But first, let's just tackle the big question. What is what is a special teams philosophy? So if I was going to write one today, what would that look like?
Well, I think you got to be honest. I mean, I think that's a lot of it's dictated by your situation that year. I do think special teams 100% can win football games for you, but I think it's misleading to say it's 1/3 of the game. If you play a game that's going to be 150 snaps, only 20 of those are going to be special teams. I'm not like a mathematician. That's not 1/3. So it's not really 1/3 of the game. However, often those plays are bigger plays than a normal play. So there are times when it definitely has as big an impact on a game as any other part of the game. So I think as a coach, you have to kind of realize, okay, we don't have to give it 1/3 of the time, but how much time are we going to give it? And that's going to determine your philosophy on special teams. I think a lot of that can also be, why, what do we have? Do we have a kicker this year? Do we have a punter this year? It's really hard to develop a kicker. Like usually you have a guy who's naturally inclined or pretty good at it, and then you can work to make him better. And if you have a kicker, then you have a chance to have a much larger special teams game. Same thing with punter or returner or all of that stuff. So I think you have to kind of consider that stuff. Also, how many kids are on your team? So I think you got to look at all of that stuff. Before you do, though, and really you consider that stuff, but there are 3 basic philosophies, I think, to special teams. Number 1 is we're going to be super aggressive and we're going to invest a significant amount of time, a decent amount of time in this. And that's going to be, that's going to come from the top down. Like you said, head coach has to green light that, because you could be the best special teams coordinator in the universe. If you're not given enough time, you really can't develop what you need to develop. And that's okay. Like if your head coach, that's not his priority, you need to be upfront with that. And there are other philosophies. It's okay. There's only so many hours in a day. And the head coach is ultimately responsible for how much time is spent where. But one philosophy is we're going to be aggressive in special teams. We're going to look to make plays. We're going to look to block punts. We're going to look to flip the field. We're going to look to fake punts. We're going to look to do all that. That's our philosophy where I am. That's why I'm putting together a special teams academy. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be a person you'd want to do that. We're very aggressive in that world, and that means we have a special teams guy that's truly his priority, where that's all he's responsible for on the weekends is scouting our special teams, coming up with tweaks to whatever we're doing to take advantage of that. And then he has a lot of authority given by me to choose the players that he wants. If you're going to be successful, you got to give him some of your better kids. And so there are some conversations that happen there about who he can't have and who he can have. But he's given a lot of room to work with and a lot more time than probably most special teams coaches get. And we basically are going to do a special T period every day for 10 minutes where, our kickers, snappers, holders, punt block guys, gunners, return guys, all of those guys are working. And then, of course, he's got time for his special teams. So that's one theory. Another theory is, we're going to just try to be even. We're going to maybe invest heavily in one or two special teams that we know we can be good at. And we're going to try to kind of hide or be as efficient or get by as easy as possible with others. You see that a lot of times with people that do like offensive punt, or they don't have a kicker. And so, they're not going to waste a lot of time on extra point field goal because that would be a complete waste of time. So they're going to maybe focus on these other two or three special teams they want to focus on and be good at, but really they're just trying to kind of play even. That's the second philosophy. The third is, what can we do that is going to be the least amount of time investment and player investment? Maybe we're going to pooch kick an onside kick every time because we don't want to work on coverage, and we're going to quick kick from offense. We're not really going to work on setting a return up on punt, like punt block, punt return. We're not even going to try extra point field goals. None of these philosophies are wrong. It just depends on where you are as a program and what you have and what you're trying to do. We all have our preference, but those are kind of the philosophies you set out up front. And then from there, you decide, okay, what kids are going to be on these special teams? Are we going to have our own grouping? If you're at a school that's big enough, I love it when you can put, hey, here's our 6 or 7 kids. They're not starters on either side of the ball. We're going to try to get them on every special team and have them take ownership of that group. That's perfect world. We don't all live in the perfect world, but if you can, it's a great place to go. Is it a place in special teams where you're trying to groom your future? Maybe 1 or 2 kids are out there that you kind of hope they don't find because you're trying just to kind of get their feet wet into the game. They're going to be the guys you want to be, your future, but they're not ready yet. So are you going to put them out there? Or are you going to say, forget that, we're going to go starters? Or is it a combination? Like for us, as we move through the season, our special teams change. Early season, we're trying to play a lot of kids. Conference, it shrinks. And in the playoffs, you're not out there unless you're kind of one of our dudes. And so it kind of modifies as the season goes on. And again, that comes down to your philosophy. I'd also say, do you have a system in place to develop your specialists? And specialists to me is a lot bigger group than to other people. Like I consider obviously your normals, snapper, holder, kicker, punter, returner. That's kind of your normal specialists. We also try to work gunners. We try to work guys that block kicks, like train 2 or 3 guys specifically for that. What do our hands team guys look like? So it's a lot of different skills you have to work in the special teams. Do you have a system in place to do that? We've been very fortunate to have a kicker only for about 4 or 5 years at the school I'm at, maybe 6 years now, where that guy, he's there to kick. So he can get extra time, and I carve out time with our special teams coordinator for them to go get kind of one-on-one time. Same thing. Some years we've had a guy that his main job is to snap or to hold. Like he plays, but really that's his main job. So they can spend extra time during practice when we're doing individual offense or defense over on the other end of the field getting coached. Do you have something in place to do that, to build that? It's invaluable, in my opinion, to have a kicker. And I know some places it's more difficult than others, but that's a huge deal. So you got to kind of figure out, is it worth the time investment? I don't really know if there's a right or a wrong answer, depending on your theory of special teams, but they need to match. Like a head coach can't get mad at the special teams coordinator when he didn't give him adequate time or resources to be ready to succeed in the game. And you have to also build your scheme to match the time investment. If you're going to do a normal, traditional looking punt, you better spend a pretty significant amount of time on your snapper and your punter and your coverage. Like, you better spend some time on that. If you don't want to do that, then maybe you look at quick kick or some other version of a punt that doesn't hurt you. Same thing on extra point field goal. If you don't have a kicker, you probably don't want to invest a lot of time in that world. Maybe you spend your time somewhere else. So I think that's what you have to come up with when you figure out your philosophy in special teams.
You made a lot of great points there, Kitty, and I kind of want to work them in reverse here. Joe taught me a long time ago the idea that if you don't know, hire a professional. And I think that's where I'm going to look. I didn't kick in high school. I've never kicked a football successfully in my life, right? So for me to go be the kicker's coach is probably not going to happen. At the small schools that I'm going, that I generally work around, most of those guys didn't play kicker. If they were kickers, it's in high school, it's probably because they played soccer. And so they are coaching soccer. It's just that weird world. There's not a lot of special teams coaches out there. There's a lot of guys that think they know what they're doing, and then you end up with 5 kicker coaches, and now the kicker can't get anything successfully done because they're altering all 5 things at a time every time they kick a football. So I think that's something you got to be careful of, is just having a kicker coach. But if you don't know, hire professionals. Send these kids out to camps and then go with them, right? Learn those coaching cues. Learn with head case kicking. Joel Matthews, I believe, is his name. And if I screwed that up, Joel, I'm sorry. But, he's a guy that I've spoke with a lot of times. And if he takes on a kid and works with a coach, he'll hey, just record them on camera as they're kicking at practice today. Send it to me and I'll make adjustments on the fly. So there are a lot of camps out there to get to. I think you also need to look at the fact that some of these specialists that you're working with, they're kids that could end up getting a scholarship that probably wouldn't have. In fact, I watched an interview today of an NFL long snapper that was played a couple of years of high school football, got into college, had to walk on at college and wasn't going to make the team really, but he started being able to long snap. And so now he went from JUCO to D3 to D1 to, getting to try out at the NFL. And I don't remember if he made a team or not at the NFL, but all because he learned how to long snap. And he took it up as junior year of either high school or college football. Way later than what some are, right? Those long snappers are worth their weight in gold if you have a good one, right? There's you solve a lot of problems with a guy that can just get the ball back there accurately every time, on time. So sending these kids out to camps, let them learn the stuff you don't know, and then learn that over time. Maybe you never replace that camp with your own knowledge, but at least you can continue coaching that kid throughout the season. And then I think that your philosophy, and I guess it kind of goes back to you saying there's really is 3 of them. It's super aggressive, that we're just kind of playing to break even, and then we're just trying not to lose the game during special teams, right? I think it really should match your philosophy for everything else. If you're a hyper aggressive offensive coach, your special teams probably should match that. And maybe they just naturally overlap. If you're going for it on 4th and 2 every time because you're a go for it coach, that becomes a part of your philosophy. It becomes a part of your DNA of who you are on all sides of the ball, I think. And so I think your special teams will follow suit. Maybe that means you're going for 2 all the time and trying to get those 4th down conversions. But like you said a while ago, Kenny, now you've got that ability. A coordinator can say, hey, we're going to, quarterbacks can punt the ball. Quarterbacks can kick the ball. There's so many rules. By the way, if you haven't looked through the rule book and see all the neat rules, you can do a lot of fun stuff by starting in a punt formation, right? You can really bring your offense alive by starting in a punt formation. So, but I think those philosophies probably are going to be very similar, or at least go hand in hand. So let's just look into the second question here. Do any special teams carry more weight for you, or are they all just kind of pretty balanced?
No, I definitely think certain ones are probably more important than others. I hate to say that the other ones aren't important, but I think you better be really solid in the punt and the kicking game, in kickoff. Those 2, you better have a philosophy there where you're not going to get yourself beat. I think there's a lot of ways you can attack the punt game. Obviously, we try to flip the field, and we're a little more normal in our punt game, I guess you could say. But I always try to put an athlete back there that's punting to slow down whoever's running after him. That was my son this year was our punter. We had probably some kids that kicked it about as good as he did, but if it was a rough snap, I trusted him. He also ran 3 fake punts for us. So we rarely did we see teams come after him. And so it allowed us to do some things in the punting game where we could get, if you're netting 35, 40 yards in high school football, that's pretty good in the punt game. And that's what we were able to do this year. But also, the reason I said that's more important is because you get a punt blocked and the game changes. So I think that's one of those areas where you better be really good in that part of the game where you're not giving up a punt return or a punt block, or if you flip it, a kickoff return back to the house. And it'd be nice if you weren't letting them start at the 50-yard line every time. I mean, there's nothing harder for an offense than driving 80 yards all night long because they can put the ball in the end zone, or at least driving 70 yards because you can cover a little bit. Or, so we try to be really good in those 2 special teams. I think we spend probably the majority of our time on those 2. If you're honest, there are certain special teams that, depending on the week, we don't really even practice much. Like if we're playing a team that's not going to kick extra points, you don't even need to practice extra point field goal block that week. Or if you're playing a team that their kicker is so bad at kicking it, you're going to set up some vanilla return anyway, because you just want to make sure you get the ball back. Same thing on punt return. If they can't, you don't know where the ball's going, it's hard to set up a return. So there are some weeks those don't really get hardly any attention because we're not going to do much. And then, in my opinion, extra point field goal, unless you're putting in some crazy exotic fake every week, once it's in, it's kind of in. Once it's in, you can work some stuff. You need to work the snap, hold, kick, and you need to make sure you're working it every week. But it's not like it's something that's going to change dramatically week to week. Well, like your other special teams probably need to be repped a little more week to week. And then I even put down here, like if you have a kicker, and then I do think you may spend more time in the field goal game because that becomes a weapon. Now instead of, hey, let's just make sure we kick extra points, it's a weapon in high school football that, hey, we're inside the 20, we can get points here. We had that this past two or 3 years where we had the opportunity we won one game on a walk-off field goal. So that becomes a weapon. Well, now we're going to spend more time in that part of the game because this is a part of what we're going to do. Where if I don't have that weapon, then we're not going to spend that kind of time.
There are certain special teams that you're required to use, right? You have to kick off and you have to kick off return. And that is, until we go to the NFL rules, a very fast-paced and can get away from you special teams, right? That is kids. You absolutely need to know what you're doing. How are you going to prevent them from just waylaying your return man? Now, luckily, most smaller schools don't have a kicker that can really bury it deep on you. So you're going to have kids out there that are going to have to catch the ball or at least get on top of it and down it. Like there's a lot of things. It's more like don't make mistakes than it is, hey, let's go make a highlight reel here. Punt is another one. Like you said, and punt return. Hopefully you're making some guys punt because you're getting stops in their side of the field. We've almost gotten to that point in a lot of the small teams I'm watching that, like, if they cross the 50, it ain't a punt anyway, right? They're just offensively going to try to, like, that's just as good a position as they would have started you on a kickoff. So, they're just going to go for it, which there's a lot to that. Meant, like we talked earlier, what is your philosophy? Some of their philosophy is just go for it. The kick blocks, I feel like, carry a little bit less weight. Yes, a big punt return, or a big punt block, a big field goal block, those can be great. I think Joe won a game on a field goal block this year. You talked about having a walk-off field goal. So, like, coaches in my circle are winning and losing games on these. But once again, I think it's more of having kids understand what they can't do, right? We can't cover up the center. Don't hit certain kids. Don't go for a block and hit the stinking punter. Now they get a first down, right? So there's I think a lot of that is just fundamentally understanding it's great if we block one of these, but what we can't have is 11 dudes running downfield to hit our return man, or hitting their guys that we're not supposed to, and now we're costing ourselves yardage or a possession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think there's some of those that are a little more required than others. You don't have to go punt, I don't guess, right? You can go out and go for it all the time. In fact, there's some punts that we've kicked in the past few years that we wish we would have just went for it. If you net less than 10 yards, like, man, it's almost worth it. Just give it a shot, give yourselves a dueler's chance. But so last part here, Kenny, and it's just kind of how can we make our philosophy part of our culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's got to be something that's important from the head coach down. So if you're not a head coach, I'm sorry, you don't really control this. But if you are a head coach, I think your words carry weight, and making sure that it is prioritized, whether that's how you practice it or whether that's how often you practice it, that matters. I also think, we do rewards and everybody kind of has their own reward system. Like we do player of the game and we talk about that kind of stuff. And so we make sure we do a special teams player of the week each week. We gave out stickers, for our helmet, like pride stickers for our helmet. And we intentionally made it easier to get stickers on special teams than other sides of the ball. Like, if you're on defense, you had to get like 6 or 7 tackles. I can't remember exactly what it was to get a sticker. But if you got 1 tackle on special teams, you got a sticker. And we put on there like, if we went 100% on extra point with at least 3 of them, the whole team got one. And so there was ways where those guys could be rewarded more for being on special teams, which made them want to be on those special teams. And I think that's one way you can do it. I think that if you can find a way to motivate players that are on the fringe to really buy into special teams, that helps. But I think it's important that you have starters out there. Like I think they need to see that, the studs are out here. So this is important. So I think there's a balance a coach needs to strike there to make sure people understand that that's important. I think you have to figure like developing specialists, that's a big deal. Like having a guy, hey, you're going to be a long snapper, that's a huge deal for us. And praising them in front of the team and talking with them, or like Daniel said, maybe sending them to a camp, doing something where you say this matters. Like this matters to us, that you're our punter, our kicker, our holder, whatever it is, that those guys feel that's an honor to be that. So we usually will start off with 3 or 4 kids at each spot. And basically, they're fighting to see who the guy is. And so that competition naturally breeds the best of the kids. And so being on those groups is important. Like I don't think you want to do special teams and everybody sits around and does nothing. So we've intentionally made sure that if we're ever doing special teams and you're not involved in that, whatever you're doing is worse. So like, not worse, like we're not trying to hurt you, but worse as in like you're not getting to do nothing. Like if we're working, specialists, you're not a specialist, you're over there doing ladder drill or sleds or something that is not viewed as fun. If we're doing kickoff team and they're sprinting to cover kickoff, you're not watching them. You're doing something. And we do a lot of our tackling circuit, during kickoff return or whatever that might be. We don't ever want it to be looked at as a punishment for being on special teams. It needs to be viewed as a reward. We want to constantly talk about it. I think that's important that you constantly talk about how important this is. You spend time in practice going through it. Take your time, make sure it's good. I think you have to find ways that you can change the game. Like even if you're not going to use them, have a fake punt that you practice. Have a fake field goal that you practice. Have a reverse on a return that you go through that makes it, hey, we may use this. And then here's the hard part. Call it in the game. Like use it. Like spend your time and use it. And this year we ran a fake field goal for a touchdown in the state quarterfinals. That was huge. We ran 2 fake punts in round 2 and round 3 of the playoffs that we converted that were huge. We ran one in the semifinals we didn't convert. Well, that's another discussion. But the idea was our kids knew, well, man, coach might actually call this. We faked extra points. We had a reverse called a couple times on punt return. We didn't ever have to use it, but it was called. We went after 3 or 4 different kicks. 3 years ago, we beat our biggest rival on a block punt scoop and score that changed the game. So our kids know that, man, we're not just doing this stuff. Like, this is stuff coach thinks can change the game. And then we practice the rules. If you block an extra point, it's dead. You leave it alone. If you block a punt, what are our rules on that? We never fall on that because we're going to get the ball anyway. Pick it up and score with it. And so you work that kind of stuff where your kids start believing, okay, this can change the game. And then final thing for me is you got to spend time on it. It doesn't have to be 1/3 of your time at practice, but you need to spend enough time on it where the kids recognize that you are being serious about what you're teaching. The final thing I'll say, and I know it's not one of our questions, is I think as a special teams coordinator, they need to have the authority and the ability to use the other coaches on the staff. So it's not just one coach coaching 11 dudes on kickoff team. So we try to have our special teams coordinator, and then we have a different coach assigned to each special team to help them. So like our offensive line coach, Coach Gould, he helps with extra point field goal. I help with our punt team. Our defensive coordinator helps with punt block, punt return. Our linebacker coach helps with kickoff team. And I think our offensive coordinator helps with kickoff return. And so everybody's got kind of a piece in this. And then when we go to specialists, we have a coach working with our long snappers and our holders. We have a coach working with our long snappers and our punters. A coach working with our return men. A coach working with our gunners. A coach working with our guys blocking kicks. So everybody's got an invested role as a coach in special teams. It also makes it work more efficiently.
That's awesome. There's a lot of good ways to keep that culture alive. I have less of a list. Obviously, you've got many more years of making this happen. Something we did this last year. Well, first of all, I'll start with this. I think you have to talk about this all the time about every yard matters, right? If it's a punt block, they need to understand the difference in them not being able to return a ball, them having pressure in their face to maybe they muff a punt return or something, them getting 10 yards versus 2 yards on a return. Those are all big numbers for us as coaches, but kids may not see it that way, right? They play enough Madden now or NCAA football or whatever it is, college football. This is something that they may not see it as that much of an advantage. They're going to go out and play defense anyway, but we can see the numbers and that it actually matters. We did something this team, and we named our special teams Special Forces, and I actually used my incredible Photoshop skills. I'm just kidding. I'm a rookie in product or in whatever I'm trying to say. I'm trying to work on those skills. But we took the actual Special Forces logo and then switched out the man's face with a pirate because I was at a pirate, right? And so we actually created a logo so the kids had something to use. We put it on their card. We made game cards every week. So they had game cards with the Special Forces logo, right? And so it was just really neat. They really bought into that. Like, we've given that whole third side of the ball its own thing, right? Its own entity. It became a new thing. You get on there, you perform well, you are the Special Forces player of the week. So just giving it a cool name, give it something, make it a part of a group that you can be in. That there's no other way to get in this group, right? I like to do that with O linemen. Do it with your special teams. And then that way kids, like you said, Kenny, you want kids to be bought into that side of the ball. So I think that's how you kind of take that. We need our best players to do special teams. And we need people to be fighting to be in special teams, right? If you can't be the starting quarterback, can't be the starting running back, you can be the starting gunner on special teams, I bet. Right? Those guys would love a break, especially you start getting into the end of the year. So
we started a couple of things we did this year, and I got a quick story too, and then I know we can wrap up here. But we started, early on. I usually would put the young ones out there, and then basically fire them if they didn't work well. This year, instead of that, we stuck all our studs out there, and all the young ones were the backups. So you get what you always get. If we're being honest, all your guys that never leave the field look at you and go, Coach, I said, well, it's your fault if that guy's not ready. Like, you get him ready and you can rest. And so it kind of put ownership on the older kid. and ownership on the younger kid of, we're not going to put you out there unless you prove you're ready, but this kid wants you to be ready.
Yeah.
And so that helped a little bit. Second thing is just a story. So, we had worked with our kids, and I've done this before where it's been subtle, but never to this extreme where, we get where these punts are rolling for us because my son is our punter, and we try to teach him to punt where it's not really returnable. So it goes about 30 yards and then kind of rolls. So a lot of teams will, their kid he's not really going for the ball, but he's just kind of hanging around the ball. So we teach our kids, push them into the ball. And so I forget, it was week 4, I think. And my middle linebacker literally picked the kid up and ran him to the ball and threw him on the ball and then jumped on it and didn't understand that was illegal. But I thought it definitely was funny.
Yeah.
It wasn't a penalty or anything. It just was illegal to do it. But I think I was like, okay, these kids are paying attention. Like they're paying attention to what we're telling them. That wasn't the right way to do it, but at least they're paying attention. This stuff matters.
That's awesome. That's got to be funny. I'm in your film now. I'm gonna go find that.
It's Pocahontas. Look for that.
There we go. Sweet, Coach. We'll knock out our what not to do as a coach, and I'm gonna steal it for I think the second week in a row.
Right.
I think I stole it last week. But really, it's just what we don't want to do as a coach this week. We don't want to not give any attention to our special teams and lose out on those very, very important yards. We understand as defensive coordinators, Kenny, you said it earlier, if I can defend an 80-yard field every time as a DC, I am happy because I'm not going to stop them every time. But by darn, I got a ton more chances to stop a drive, to make them make 3 mistakes, even if I can't, forcibly stop them. To give them more opportunities to make some mistakes and get off the field is great. Offensively, we all know, we struggle enough as it is to get in the red zone and get the ball in the end zone. So what we don't want to do is have tired kids when we get there. So if we can get the ball back and we're closer to the 50 or beyond the 50, man, that average starting yard, line is very important. So I think we can't overlook the importance of special teams and getting the ball into advantageous areas for us. So if it's, like you said, if it's a block, yes, you can turn a game. But what I really want is pressure on that guy so he muffs the punt. It's still a high school kid back there, right? I don't have to actually make contact if I can just get him to pull it left, right, go out of bounds, whatever it is. And then knowing the rules. You talked about that earlier, right? There's a lot of places where you can just know the rules and get the advantage. So get into your playbook, or excuse me, your rule book, and go find out what are the weird rules that no one knows about. The fair catch, field goal is one, or free kick is one that's coming around a little more. Understanding that every kick in high school football is the exact same. Mm-hmm. They're all just scrimmage kicks, so the rules are the same for all of them. It doesn't matter. We understood that coming in this season, and so we talked about, regardless of how good your kicker is, at some point, you might as well try a field goal instead of trying to punt it. The coffin corner punt's kind of a thing I haven't heard a lot of anymore, but better than trying to get a kid to drop a punt and exactly just try for the field goal. Worst case scenario, he misses, it rolls out of bounds, and now you've punted it and they get it to 25. Who cares, right? It's just a touchback.
Yeah, we did that. So if you're in my film, go watch our Gosnell film because they had no idea. We were kicking off, we were extra point field goal kicking, like you're saying, from our own 30. And They had nobody beat because they didn't know the rule.
Yep. So it's a free punt for you. So just knowing those rules, man, don't miss an opportunity to let special teams win the game for you. Sweet. Jump into our sponsored ad one last time. Talk about Ace Sports. Mark and Ryan and the guys, they're working overtime right now. I know that they're trying to hit clinics and stuff too. Ryan sent me a thing last week, right? I'm working for the head coaching spot, and I said, hey, buddy, I want some numbers to take. So, getting to work with him, and it's a very easy process. I've now seen the paperwork all the way through because I've seen your fundraising stuff. So it is a great product. Those guys are very easy to work with. They're very timely. So get over there and talk to those guys. Real quick, let me mention the Patreon again, patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. If you haven't already, get over to the Headsets magazine. It is a great product written by other coaches in the community. It's a place for you to go learn. If you want to pitch in some of those articles, man, you're missing a certain type of article. You think it needs to be written, write it. Get it to us. Kenny, I know you said you've got some books coming out. Run me one more time. Run me through those that are coming out now.
Yeah, so Play Caller's Guide is out now. That was the most recent book. It's the 41st book we put out. It was just crazy to me. We have that many books. They're all over at fbcoachsimpson.com. In the materials section, you can go through any of them. But Play Callers Guidebook is the most recent. Working on Team Themes Volume 5, which means we already have Volumes 1 through 4 out. 5 is what will be the next one. And then I'm working on the 3-4 Swarm Volume 2, which means we actually have 4 other books in the defensive books. This will add one. And then we've been talking a little bit about the special teams workbook that's out, as well as the head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Basically, if you coach a position, we've got a workbook that may help you get organized. All that stuff's over at fbcoachsimpson.com as well. And I know Daniel and myself are working on a few other books and some other things kind of in the works. I'll be looking for those probably late in the summer or next off season.
Awesome. If you haven't already got your tickets, get to one of those clinics, especially guys that are regional. Boston is the first weekend in April, I'm pretty sure. And then where's the other place to go? Milwaukee. Thank you. Whew, I drew a blank there. Milwaukee will be the second weekend in April. So back-to-back weekends, back-to-back chances to get to see Kenny and all of the Gun T stuff. It just so happens that you get the bonus there that I'll be jumping on as well. So I think that's the last 2 left for this season. I'm kind of looking forward to see where next season takes us, Kenny. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Social media-wise, I am at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter /X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Jump over to the website, chamberlainfootballconsulting.com. I've got both podcasts there. If you're just wanting to go through and look for a certain episode, it's a great place to find them. A little other stuff in the works there, but it's kind of a work in progress. I need to get back on, honestly. And then patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting, where you can sign up for any tier. Guys, there is a free thing on Patreon, but let's be honest, that's not much stuff gets posted for the free. Very, very little. So I do appreciate you guys going over and signing up for the free. At least I understand there's a lot of coaches out there that want to see stuff that I've created, but really going to find one of those tiers that best suits you. Like I said, if there's not one, let's customize one. Hit me up. We'll make one for you. And then the YouTube, where I'm just teaching my wife how to coach football, honestly. So she's learning football via my Back to the Basics series over on YouTube. Kenny, where are you at?
And all things FB Coach Simpson. So fbcoachsimpson.com, at FB Coach Simpson at Twitter, fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com.
Awesome. Podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod. We want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.